¿Disipó todas las dudas? Para Toño no. ¿Para Ricky?
No, tampoco. No, le gana un equipo mediocre.
When the second penalty came around, Vinicius was on a hat trick at that point, so why not let him take it and get a hat trick and feel even better about himself? So that was something that annoyed me about tonight's match.
La última vez que hubo Jogou Bonito Brasil fue en el 70 y un
82.
poquito en el 82 con Tele Santana, que no ganaron tampoco, quedaron eliminados.
No llegaron ni a semifinal.
Y nunca más Jogou Bonito. El Jogou Bonito quedó como...
Aspiracional.
Sí, a ver, es una mentira ahora. El Jogou Bonito es de España.
Cuando ganaron el Mundial de Corea-Japón hubo
Horrible.
Jogou Bonito.
No, ¿a dónde?
No, horrível.
Ai,
Guano
a mí
horrível.
me-
Fala, meu convocado! Aí sim, hein? Vinicius Jr, o melhor jogador da temporada, parece que resolveu estrear na Seleção Brasileira. Que jogo, hein? Hoje vamos ver a repercussão dessa vitória da Seleção Brasileira lá nos Estados Unidos.
Deixe seu comentário, se inscreva aqui no Seleção do Mundo e bora ver!
I agree. We'll go there next. The other match in Group D took place in Las Vegas. Brazil claimed a 4-1 win over Paraguay. Brazil scored 3 times in the first half, 2 by Vinicius Jr. and 1 by Savio. Then Paraguay pulled one back early in the second half, but then a Lucas Paquetá penalty rounded out the scoring, so Brazil get their first win of this tournament.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the penalties. And, the first opportunity was Paquetá. He steps up. Rob Stone loses his mind because he just hates the stutter step. And we've already talked about the stutter step in the context of the tournament. But it's one thing if you stutter and then you slam it home, people can yell and scream. But in this case, not only did he stutter, but he missed. And not only did he miss, but he missed the entire goal.
This made no sense to me. Paquetá taking both those penalties. He's a midfielder. Nobody's going to judge him on goals. His role in the team is as a supplier, as he showed with a beautiful pass to Vinicius on his first goal. Vinicius is the star of the team. He's a better penalty kick taker than Paquetá. He takes them for Real Madrid. He made all of his attempts this past season, including in big games against Barcelona, against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and he's the guy you have to get going. I would be much happier if we were sitting here right now with a 4-1 win in which Vinicius scored all 4 goals. From an overall vibe standpoint and the direction you want this team to go, I'd feel much better about that. So I have no idea why Paquetá grabbed the ball for both those penalties. It made no sense to me, and I think Dorival Jr. should have overruled him and had Vinicius take it.
Well, if for whatever reason he takes the first one, right, and misses it, do you think that then disqualifies him from taking another in your version of this team out there, and you say, no, we're not going to give it to him? Because there is a school of thought that says, well, let's give it to him, and he makes up for it, which ultimately he did. But to your point, he's not the regular penalty kick taker or one that you would point to anyway. So what are we really losing by not having him take?
Yeah, it's not like you're counting on him for goals, so you have to get his goal-scoring confidence back. So it just made no sense to me. And Vinicius, when the second penalty came around, Vinicius was on a hat trick at that point. So why not let him take it and get a hat trick and feel even better about himself? So that was something that annoyed me about tonight's match.
You know what else annoyed me? And we were talking about the penalties. I don't want to talk about Vinny in a second, but just in general, the modern version of the game, we all know when it comes to the handball rule that it has not only encouraged, but almost mandated that as defenders in the box, you most often have to put your arms behind your back. From a practical perspective, obviously, it's not making yourself bigger, and you just don't want to risk it. And rarely, if you do have your hands behind your back and it hits you, are they going to call it? Because you are literally showing that you are trying not to have it hit your hands in this game. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it. All right, you can't half-ass it. You can't have one hand behind the back and then one other arm flailing, which is what we saw here today. So if you're going to do it, I'm just encouraging everybody out there in this new age of defending, put both hands behind the back, or you risk what happens.
That second penalty, I was very relieved that happened because Brazil was absolutely awful in the second half. Right. Shocking.
It was shocking the way they came out in that second half, right?
Paraguay pulled one back. Allison then made an incredible save to keep it from being 3-2. And at 3-1, that game was still hanging there dangerously, and when that penalty occurred and Brazil scored, and that was that. But I thank God that penalty happened when it did, because Brazil was about to make a mess of that game.
Now, before the game, we started talking, and I always think about you as you're sitting there watching, in the control room and doing all the work that you do. And I think about you when I start talking about Brazil and how you would come back at me and all. But I framed it as that this is not only a Brazil team that you and many Brazilians don't think can actually win, but also can't provide the romantic, beautiful game that we have come to expect when anybody puts on that yellow shirt. Now, Vinny Jr., he had himself a night tonight. He entertained the thousands that were there. He set up shop on that left-hand side, which I think we can both agree that is ultimately where his best position is, regardless of where people want to throw him out there on the field. And he can certainly come inside at different times. And he gave the people kind of what they want with the flicks and the tricks, but ultimately with the goal. And I know you wanted him to get that hat trick ultimately, but does this bode well for him and this team going forward?
Yes, his performance in the first half was the biggest positive of this night. Major step in the right direction for him. We'll see if he kicks on from there. But I agree with you that is the story for Brazil tonight.
What do you think the press will say about this in the morning when it comes to Brazil?
Step in the right direction, but still some areas of improvement for sure. Let me just say, Dorival Jr. made 2 changes to the lineup, and I like them both. Savinho coming on for Rafinha. I think you like Savinho as well.
I thought he was really good in the first game.
And then Wendell coming in for Aran at left back. Neither one is that great, but I think Wendell is the less bad of the two, so I think that change improved the team as well. The other one that has to happen is, I keep banging on about this, he has to get João Gomes out of that midfield. He adds absolutely nothing. It either needs to be Douglas Luiz, or you could even bring on Andrés Pereira and play Paquetá deeper. But Brazil needs more quality in that center of the park to really create chances. There's still a lack of fluidity there, so that needs to improve for sure.
All right, so Paraguay goes out. They are eliminated from the tournament, even with one game to play. And the usual suspects in that Colombia and Brazil get the job done in different ways. And still coming out of today, I think I would say, and a lot of people would say, that the pecking order still has Colombia ahead of Brazil. But they play in this third game, and I think that's where some more questions will be answered.
Yeah, so if Brazil win that game, they would top the group. Colombia only need a draw to finish first, and that could be significant. I know U.S. fans don't want to hear this, but if Panama ends up finishing second in Group C, then you definitely want to top Group D,
right?
Because facing Panama in the quarterfinals versus Uruguay, that's a major difference.
You shut your mouth, David Mossy. Don't you even dare, talk it into existence.
I mean, it's been 24 hours. I know it's not in the rundown, but any thoughts on the U.S., that anything you've had more time to digest?
I think I just, I got up, and in the, the harsh light of a new day, it still sucks. And it still is mind-boggling that this U.S. team finds themselves in this position. And yet, as I said before, nothing has really changed when you really look at it, because this referendum that is the Copa America relative to Greg Berhalter and this team, that was also relative to them getting out of the group and then playing Colombia or Brazil, has now just shifted to the third game against Uruguay. And Greg Berhalter and this team, as I said on air, they created this situation, and they are going to have to fix it. And they are going to have to come up with a seminal type of moment and a defining type of performance and results. It's a game before a lot of us thought it was going to happen, but it now has to happen in the third game. And we'll ultimately see that. And as we get closer to Monday, we'll start to think more and more about potential changes. Obviously, Tim Weah is not going to be available, so there is at least one change that has to be made going forward. And Matt Turner, still don't know about his status relative to Monday after coming off at halftime. So, we'll see. But the sky, I woke up this morning and I didn't think that the sky was necessarily falling, but it's, it's debatable who had a worse day, Greg Berhalter or Mr. What's our president's name again?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, yeah. So, it is what it is. They made this situation, and that's the way it goes.
¿Disipó todas las dudas? Para Toño no. ¿Para Ricky?
No, tampoco. No, le gana un equipo mediocre.
Mediocre.
Y está bien, hizo lo que tenía que hacer.
¿Barak?
A ver, le debía haber ganado a Costa Rica, sobre todo con la Costa Rica que se presentó a esta Copa América. Viendo hoy la verdadera cara de Costa Rica contra Colombia, creo que también podemos sacar conclusiones sobre el terrible primer partido de Brasil. Poniendo eso en perspectiva, pues sí, se saca algunas dudas. Todas, por supuesto que no. Algunas, sí, hoy Brasil no gana y está con un pie fuera de los cuartos de final. Entonces sí que es importante, pero sí que hay que tener en cuenta que esta Paraguay es muy poquito, como para pensar que Brasil va en serio.
Es que veníamos hablando de que esta nueva Brasil, estos muchachos nuevos, la Brasil que extraña a Neymar. Hoy Neymar estaba allí en el estadio de fanático, apoyando a su equipo, ¿verdad? Aplaudiendo y poniéndose la mano en la cabeza, especialmente después del terrible cobro del penal de Paquetá. Hoy vimos 2 penales, uno muy bien cobrado por parte de Lucho Díaz y otro muy mal cobrado.
Bueno, 3, porque Paquetá tira 2.
Bueno, sí, exacto, pero el primero fue un terrible cobro de penal y las manos se las llevaba a la cabeza Neymar. Esta Brasil hoy no extrañó al máximo goleador de la verde amarela. ¿O sí?
A ver,
Qué exigentes
para
están
mí,
mis muchachos. La misma pregunta para todos los que nos están viendo en YouTube o en Facebook.
Y a todos le quiero decir que al Neymar que extraña es de hace 10 años atrás.
Ah, bueno,
O
pero eso
estoy
es
exagerando,
imposible.
¿verdad? Bueno, pero Neymar de hace unos años tampoco aportó mucho para esta selección, no la llevó al nivel que todos esperaban, y ahora lo veo a Neymar, está totalmente fuera de fútbol, excedido de peso, no sé cuándo va a volver, y el Neymar de hace 10 años no hay ninguno, ni remotamente cerca. No me vengan con que Vinicius Jr. es el nuevo Neymar.
Bueno,
No me mires así, Caro, no me venga con que Vinicius Jr. es el nuevo Neymar.
Mira,
no lo es.
no, 5 goles con los 2 de hoy en 32 partidos con Brasil. Eso no es una cuota goleadora de un
Desastre.
referente de la
Para un
selección.
brasileño
A la edad de
un desastre.
Vinicius,
No
a
es,
la edad
no
de,
es.
de Vinicius, Neymar llevaba 40 o 50 goles.
Por
Sí,
eso, o sea,
sí,
nadie
sí.
está comparando a Vinicius con Neymar, pero sí se espera un poco más de,
Por la duda.
Vinicius en
Sí.
esta selección por lo que es su presente en el Real Madrid, especialmente este año. Y no sé si este será el partido, el antes y después
Tendría.
para Vinicius con la selección.
Es que si no va a ser Vinicius, ¿quién va a ser? Tiene que ser él. Es decir, si Brasil realmente opta a ganar esta Copa América, no me lo imagino haciéndolo. En general no me lo imagino. Pero si me imagino, tiene que ser con un Vinicius estelar, con un Vinicius como el que vemos en el Real Madrid. Con un Vinicius que
Es que
agarre
no
la
hay otro.
pelota. Claro, con un Vinicius que agarre la pelota, no en el segundo penal, en el primero. Y diga, yo soy la estrella del equipo y yo la tiro.
¿Por qué Paquetá y no Vinicius?
A
¿Qué
ver,
pasó allí? Porque yo
Paquetá-
pensé que lo cobraría Vinicius de entrada.
Bueno, está bien que.
Pero es
que
un buen
Brasil
acto, es un
quiera
buen acto de
sentir
parte
que
de
tiene a
Vinicius.
varios referentes, a varios líderes, a varios jugadores capaces de tirar un penal, porque es Brasil, pero es un engaño. Es decir, Paquetá es un muy buen jugador en el West Ham y para lo que le alcance, no, en el West Ham. En el West Ham.
Ah, sí, está bien.
¿De acuerdo?
Barack.
No
¿Qué
juega.
es eso?
No juega en el
Juega
Manchester
en el
City.
West Ham, un brasilero número 10, armador del
Ricky,
equipo que
tranquilo,
juega en el West Ham.
Tranquilo, por eso estamos de acuerdo.
Vos jugás bien
no,
en el West Ham,
no, no,
pero
yo
bueno,
no.
dale, sí,
Pero
te lo doy.
Paquetá, no, es justo a lo que voy.
Sí.
Si en otra época, si habláramos de Paquetá, del
Fracaso
de
en el
Guimaraes, de Douglas Luiz, no estaríamos hablando del Aston Villa, del Newcastle y del West Ham. Estaríamos hablando de los mediocampistas del Liverpool, del Manchester United y del Manchester
Claro.
City. Eso no pasa con la selección brasileña. Entonces,
No.
yo entiendo que el penal, como que diga, bueno, Paquetá no había fallado nunca en su vida, tampoco había tirado tantos. Había
Eran
tirado
6, ¿no?
6 y los metió todos.
A nivel de club y de
Pero,
selección.
pero Vinicius tiene que, en ese tipo de detalles,
Pedirlo.
o el entrenador asignárselo.
Claro. A mí me
Pero
llamó
es
la
un buen
atención,
gesto,
no
¿no?
sé a ti, Toño.
Eso es un buen gesto.
quién?
A mí me parece un gesto de equipo. O sea, además es una situación muy rara de ver. No sé si Ricky, directamente te lo pregunto, ¿recuerdas una situación así en la que de plano le dejan el penal a uno que había fallado en el primer tiempo cuando se supone que es otro que lo va a tirar? A mí me parece que está bien. Y yo no tengo la gran expectativa, no la gran expectativa de fútbol de esta selección de Brasil, pero muchachos, déjenlos avanzar. O sea, ya se, digamos, repusieron de esa excepción que fue contra Costa Rica y déjanos avanzar. Tampoco estamos hablando de la Copa del Mundo, no es el nivel tampoco de la Eurocopa. Hay un muy grande favorito, un Brasil va a pelear.
Es verdad. Y Vinicius, para lo que fue su primer gol en este partido, el primero, armó la fiesta por su sector. Armó la fiesta, marcó ese gol, se desató, bailó y ahí se prendió esta Brasil.
Sí, a
Hubo
ver,
Jogou Bonito, siempre nos preguntamos eso, pero
De ratos, de
llevábamos
ratitos.
chance que no lo hacíamos porque no lo veíamos.
No, hoy lo hablábamos con Barack. La última vez que hubo Jogou Bonito de Brasil fue en el 70 y
82.
un poquito en el 82 con Tele Santana, que no ganaron tampoco, quedaron eliminados.
No llegaron ni a semifinal.
Y nunca más Jogou Bonito. El Jogou Bonito quedó como
Aspiracional.
Sí, a ver, es una mentira ahora. El Jogou Bonito es de España.
Cuando ganaron el Mundial de Corea-Japón hubo
Horrible.
Jogou Bonito.
No, ¿a dónde?
No, horrible.
No.
Jugaban
Ay,
horrible.
a mí me
Jugaban
encantó.
espantosos. No, tenía grandes jugadores.
Jugaron
Es que,
potente.
se puede confundir.
No bonito, pero jugaron
se puede
potente.
confundir.
Se o Vinicius Jr. agora fizesse Pix aí na sua conta de 9 centão, seria bom ou não? Eu acho meio difícil disso acontecer, e você também, né? Mas você sabia que você pode utilizar essa fama dele para ganhar mais ou menos isso? Vem ver.
E repercutindo uma notícia de um jogo dele aqui, ó, olha só o que a gente faturou. Quase R$1.000, é isso mesmo, receita estimada, eu sempre mostro por quê, porque ainda está processando os últimos 2 dias. Você quer saber como faturar repercutindo notícias aqui na internet do jeito certo? Clique em Saiba Mais.